Good afternoon, guys. I want to take just a minute to go over a couple of things with you regarding the underpinnings of identifying our expectations for synchronous learning when we're teaching children in a virtual space. So this is going to be a little bit around how culture and our cultural understandings play a part in our expectations for children. And these slides will be made available to you on the actual slide deck for the active management of the virtual classroom module. So if you have questions about this content, feel free to contact me, Natalie Smith, through district email. All right, so I'm going to stop my video so that you can see all the content on the slides. All right, so to begin with, virtual learning is usually a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning. You all know that, and it tends to pose some unique challenges. And so that's something that the Distance Learning Playbook specifically outlines in Module 2. One such of these expectations that they bring up actually was around whether we require students to use the camera in Zoom and Google Hangouts. So whether they make their face visible when we're having our synchronous sessions using Zoom. So some students in the book turned them on, but most of the adolescents did not. And this initially to the authors and teachers at the time seemed like a no-brainer. Of course they should be turning their cameras on. But we have to think about this just a little bit. The issue of requiring students to use the camera is more complicated than simply saying, of course they should put them on. Consider that there are sensitive reasons why a child may or may not want to have their face on video. It may be connected to religious restrictions, as it was discussed in the Distance Learning Playbook, or it might even be that children do not want their homes to be shown. So when we're developing and teaching expectations, we need to take a sensitive approach. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be highlighting specifically in this part how culture and personal bias play a role in the expectations we set for students in a virtual environment. So this is a wonderful book that I love and read, and those of you that know me, I've probably shown you this book or even given you a copy of it at some point. As we stated in this last slide, culture and personal bias do play a role in the expectations that we set for students. In the text, these kids are out of control. The authors state that class community is one of the most important ways we can be responsive and supportive of students. And in these communities, it's where we acknowledge and honor the local and wider social contexts. So in the most effective spaces where caring classroom environments have been developed, teachers seek to create these safe spaces for learners. In these safe spaces, children are able to make mistakes, to learn, and to actively support one another. Furthermore, they're physically organized to promote interaction between and among students. So as you can see on this slide, there's kind of these three big components of a caring classroom: acknowledging and honoring the outside culture, creating safe spaces for children to grow and make mistakes, and organizing it to promote SEL skills of social awareness and relationship skills. So to enhance these caring classroom environments, Milner and his co-authors stated the following. So this is a direct quote from the text. A caring classroom environment includes a critically self-aware teacher who holds belief in all students' abilities to achieve at high levels, has high expectations for all students, and provides academic rigor needed to grow all students to high levels. In a virtual space, having high expectations for all will show up in the content we put before kids. It will also manifest itself in how we talk to them and redirect their behavior. And it will certainly show up in the expectations that we put on the onset of the class. So it's really important then that we have clear, consistent, unbiased, and explicitly communicated high expectations for all students. And these expectations really should be rooted, must be rooted in our unwavering belief that all children can learn and can be self-directed and empowered to do the work that we're putting before them. But there is a bit of a stumbling block to this. And there's one word in here I wanted to make sure that I highlighted, and it's unbiased. So all of us do have biases. They're based on how we were socialized in our society. And as adults, we often act and react from these internalized beliefs. We call these implicit bias. Implicit biases are the automatic and unconscious stereotypes that drive all people to behave and make decisions in certain ways. That's a direct quote from Dr. Milner's text. These biases are part of our identity, and they do play a role in how we relate to students, and how we redirect students, and how we develop and communicate our expectations to them. So let's circle back to the question of the use of a camera during Zoom meetings. Albert and I have seen a number of tweets and communications about expectations on Twitter from across the country about this very topic. And we felt it critical to highlight what the authors of the Distance Learning Playbook mentioned about this topic. Using the camera or not as a requirement is a very sensitive subject. Consider that when we ask students to turn on their cameras, we are inviting the entire class into their home. This is really important to think about. Being sensitive to the camera requirement honors that each child may or may not have a boundary on what he or she wants to share from home. It also shows that you respect and honor children and that you understand they are sensitive to peer communication and comparisons. It shows that you understand not all children have the same access to goods and services at home, and that they may share houses and spaces with other family, and that their conditions are different from their peers. Ultimately, the small choices we make regarding participation procedures can make or break access for learning for children. Let me say that again. I think it's really important. Ultimately, these small, what seem to be small choices regarding participation procedures can make or break the access students have to learning. It can either be a barrier or it can lift children up. All procedures we have show children they belong in our virtual and face-to-face classrooms. So in closing, just be considerate of that camera requirement and any other participation requirement you put into place for synchronous learning. Being considerate of these requirements is just one way we can demonstrate our commitment to equity for every single student, but most especially our vulnerable students this year. Please consider these small steps. They matter more than you know. If you want more information about what you've seen in these slides today, be sure to click on the resources that are linked here. This particular presentation is linked in the module on the first slide around expectations for synchronous learning.